Alright guys, we're using our 16 by 3 by 3 plant propagation stand mold in this video. It's for holding test tubes to propagate small plants. We're going to start off like we always do by spraying our mold release. Every silicone mold needs a non-silicone based mold release. Whether you're using our mold or anyone else's, you need to use a non-silicone based mold release to make sure that mold lasts longer, that you get multiple pores out of it, and that the resin doesn't stick. So we're just going to spray that on, wait a few minutes for it to dry, and go to the next step. We're mixing up some Total Boat Thickset Fathom here. It is the product to use because this is such a deep mold at 3 inches thick. It is obviously 60 inches long, so it's quite a bit of volume there. So Thickset Fathom is good for like 2 to 3 inch pores, and it'll allow us to get a nice thin material that's going to easily let the bubbles escape, should we have some bubbles in there. So I'm just mixing it up, and I'm using some generic Baja Blue dye. I'm using it like a dye instead of a powder pigment because I do want translucency. I want it to look like water. In the next stage, the base layer, we're going to do an actual blue pigment. And you can see the mold itself has 5 different tubes, essentially, areas for test tubes. So in this, I'm going over with some Total Boat Thickset, not the Thickset Fathom, because I'm basically finishing off like a 1/2 inch. And I'm doing this the next day. So that base layer isn't even set yet, but it's kind of like mushy, kind of tacky. So I've gone ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and stabby stab. I'm basically stabbing the new darker blue down into the lighter Thickset Fathom product, hoping to create a little bit of texture instead of having just like a plain, like, you know, flat transition. I wanted to have a little bit of, you know, color mixing and a little bit of texture, like the bottom's a little bit rough. It's just the effect I was going for. Obviously this stand, this mold's good for a lot of things. You can case objects in it. You can do multiple levels of pores. It is quite a bit of volume there. So there's a lot you can do with this particular mold. And of course, we're just going to pop those bubbles with the torch. I would recommend using a heat gun if you're not fancy on the torch. You definitely do want to hold the torch to the silicone mold. Now, one thing that's really important about this mold is it is 16 inches long. So with that thing full of resin, the sides can bow out a little bit in the middle. So you want to use like a flat piece of plastic or wood or a box, just like I showed there, to keep the mold from bowing out. And the trick to demolding deep molds like this, like in this case is 3 inches thick, is you can either use an air compressor and like blow air into it, or get some soapy water and put the soapy water within the mold, between the resin piece and the mold, and basically it acts as a lubricant. It's going to definitely save you struggle, and it's going to also reduce the chance of you ripping your mold, because taking out a big sharp piece of resin like this, fighting with the mold's not something you want to do. So like I'm just putting some soapy water in there, and you'll see once that's done, it just kind of slips out of there and just kind of boop, pops right out. Okay, it doesn't make that sound, but it's easier than fighting with it. So this is definitely a trick I recommend, and there you go. There is our beautiful solid resin plant propagation stand. Like I said earlier in this video, it is designed to have 1 inch diameter holes, which fits the standard 25 millimeter diameter test tubes you can get on Amazon or really wherever. And you can see that there's like different heights. So I've got short ones and long ones. I'm just going to go ahead and grab all these long ones and throw them in there so you can see. And of course, the idea is that you're putting like small seedling plants in here to grow. So yeah, this mold has a lot of capability. If you want to put rocks in there, if you want to make it like an ocean theme, if you want to put little characters, Lego, fish, seashells, whatever. There's a lot of volume there that you can play with. And I believe we are the first to come out with like a solid propagation stand mold like this. And of course, you can get yours at craftedelements.com. Thanks for watching, guys.